Bitten was the fourth novel I completed. The other three were written to market. I was really looking at what is currently hot in the market, and saying, yes, I can write that. And finally, I gave up and said, I'm just going to write what I want to write. And what I wanted to write was a thriller with a female werewolf. I was told many times nobody would ever buy this, and I thought that was fine because I really was just enjoying having fun with it. This It was originally envisioned as a series, but then when I started getting more seriously into it, I said, okay, standalone. I feel like I should just count on a standalone. So I did wrap it up within one book. When that did end up selling, my original contracts just say Bitten and one other supernatural thriller. They just figured I'd do another standalone, but it didn't take long before they were saying, could you actually do a sequel to this, and could you turn it into a series? And I said, I love these characters, I really do, but I can't imagine umpteen, dead bodies buried in shallow graves. There's just not as much I can do with them in a series, so I would need to bring in other characters and spin off to other stories, creating a wider world and women of the other world, where I'm going from one narrator to another and then returning to some previous ones. The original thing was werewolves. I mentioned I like horror, I like animals. Werewolves are the perfect, combination of those two. When I created werewolves, though, again, programmer, coder, logic, I wanted something that I thought I could possibly believe. If I could believe werewolves existed, what kind could I imagine? So I was going through all the folklore. I had a lot of grounding in that, going through that and picking and choosing what worked for me. I ended up I wanted them to fully transform into wolves. That was a big thing. I wanted them to be wolf-like in every possible way, even in their human lives. So I went through all of that. And then, of course, I had to add on new creatures for the broader world. And this is a world where people don't know that supernatural exists. So there are two types. There are the ones where everyone knows it, and the ones where everyone doesn't. So this is a hidden world. Went on to create witches next, and then how do they form their groups? What are their politics? What are their, how do they govern? How do they work? And so on. Half demons, which is pretty much what it sounds like. I think I called them my X-Men, which is that they all have different powers depending on their demonic father. Necromancers, taking the old concept of being able to not only see and speak to ghosts, but raise the dead and to control zombies. And various sorcerers as well. And then there were various other shamans and so on. But I kind of focused on those. And of course, vampires. I do have vampires, but even when I was starting out, vampires were the most popular one. And I really felt like I couldn't add a whole lot to that lore. So I do have them, but they've always taken a secondary position. I do have a trilogy, which is way back when, which was a female hitman. So that was my Nadia Stafford. So technically those are set in the same world as Rockerton. There's very little, there's some Easter eggy crossovers with a character and so on. So they're set in the same world. Rockerton really became its own thing. It's that small town in the Yukon where people go to disappear. So my agent at the time, we had been just chit-chatting, and she said, oh, I've got something for you. And every now and then she'd just throw little tidbits at me, random trivia at me, just thinking it might spark an idea. And this one was that she had heard something somewhere where enough people go missing every year to populate a small town. And so my brain goes, what if there was a small town where you could go if you had to dis, disappear? So that was the genesis for that. And you take that little tiny seed and start going, okay, where could this be? How could this work? And it takes a whole lot of that before you're going, okay, now I have a town. What kind of person do I want to send there? So yeah.
And then, I mean, as far as favorite characters or favorite volumes from that series and favorite mysteries you got into?
Yeah, so for Rockden, favorite volume, that's always tough. It might be the last one, or it might be book three, which was where they actually send them a serial killer. Because at some point, you have to get an actual serial killer in that town. So that one was a lot of fun. And favorite characters, I really had a lot of fun with that one because I can come up with this core group of somewhat oddbally characters, of whom my narrator seems the most normal, despite being a little bit oddball herself. So you can have the reformed sociopath. You can have the former hitman, which is what tied into the previous one. All of these very odd characters. That series wrapped up at book 7, and again, I knew that I had to wrap it up. I'm like, okay, I've hit the limit of what I can do here. I'm not quite done with these characters, but I've hit the limit of where I can go with this town. And my publisher said, would you consider doing a spinoff? And it's because the town ended and they made the decision, spoiler, to build their own town, to get away from everything that had gone wrong. And we can do it right this time. So she said, would you consider doing that? And I said, okay, yeah, I think I can go in fresh there. And now they're doing their own town. So Murder at Havens Rock, which came out a couple of weeks ago. Oh, wait, last week, is the first in that spinoff where they are building their own town where everything will be just happy, and it's not actually called Murder at Havens Rock for a reason. Yeah. Yeah, so I have wanted to do historical for a very long time. I actually had an idea for a historical time travel mystery that was, for me, biting off way more than I could chew. I love reading historical. I'm terrified of writing it because everything you're good. I would be down to every word. Like, is this correct? Is this not correct? And I know you have to let that go, but I would still be, doing so much research. So I decided I was going to write. I had thrown out this idea literally on like Twitter. Because I'd gone to a class with a writer that I know who was talking about writing for your id. She does a thing, Jen Lynn Barnes. She's a psychologist who does some stuff on writing the book that you most want to write. Just setting free all that critical voice and writing what you want to write. And I kind of tweeted like, I want to write a Victorian time travel romance with a haunted house, and got a whole lot of, I would read that. I would totally read that. So that made me go, well, maybe I will write this book. So I did write it. I wrote that, put it out there. I did that one indie. So that was something that I did as a self-published book because I was like, this is too weird to try selling. So I did it, and I thought, and if it fails, at least it is indie. And it did well. People really enjoyed that, and it gave me what I needed to tackle that time travel mystery, which requires a whole lot more research, but at least Stitch and Chime let me think maybe I can handle the historical stuff and it won't be as awful as I fear. Cursed Luck was a total COVID project. I mentioned doing young adult standalone dark thrillers. I was supposed to be writing, it actually comes out in April of this year. I was supposed to be writing this dark standalone YA thriller, and I could not go with dark. It was early in the pandemic. I couldn't go dark. And I asked the publisher, I need an extra year for this. So I put that aside. And what I wanted to write was light and fun, as close to like cozy urban fantasy as you could imagine. So I started doing an online novel. So Cursed Luck was a free e-serial. I just posted chapters, got the first one out, ended up, cleaning it up, putting it out, doing a second one in the duology. And that kind of got me far enough into the pandemic that I got past that. I need to do light and was able to then go back to doing dark. The very original idea for that, it was honestly, okay. So the Witcher is now obviously a TV show. Started off as books, have not read the books, but certainly did play the games. And there is, I think, in the third one, there is a scene with a griffin fight, and it made me go, griffins, I had always thought of as being more of a fantastical, like the unicorns. And here was something really scary. And it made me start thinking, I would love to do like a young adult monster hunting book, someone who's a monster hunter. So I wrote the first 5 chapters, and it was not working. And I went back. I put it aside. A year or so later, went back, tried again, was not working, and took about 3 years. And I finally had this epiphany of, what if it was middle grade? What if instead of being she's 17, she's 12? And so I went back and wrote it with a whole lot less angst and a whole lot more humor, like that fully adventure fun. Yes, darkness, but adventure fun, and it just sang. So it was that I had been looking at it from the wrong age group. Middle grade is a different thing. I had co-written a trilogy earlier with a friend, so I knew what that age group was, and yeah, it really worked well for that.